Grace and peace to you, and welcome to Lafayette Avenue Presbyterian Church. This is a congregation where we like to say that we are a diverse community where people of faith and people of no faith at all can come together and journey with one another and experience the divine in this place. So my name is Emily Brewer. I'm the pastor here at LAPC, and it's such a joy to be together with you all this afternoon and to be working again with Brian Tate, who's a member here in this congregation. So thank you, Brian, for hosting this event here. This congregation also is fond of calling itself the Town Hall of Fort Greene. We love to host community events here in the community. And so while we do meet here for worship every Sunday at 11, we also try to ensure that this building is a resource and a place for community beyond just the members of this congregation. So especially given the cost of renting space in this rapidly gentrifying neighborhood, we try to keep this building accessible in many ways. And we know that we have a ways to go in some aspects of accessibility, and so we are currently in a capital campaign to update our sanctuary and add in an ADA ramp, and we look forward to continually trying to become more welcoming and more accessible and a place where people can continue to be safe and thrive. Like I said, we are so grateful to be able to host this event, and I'm grateful to learn from and with you all this afternoon. And just a couple notes about hospitality. Restrooms are really important to know where they are. So there are a couple options for restrooms. In this hall, down this hall that's to your left, there are two gender-neutral restrooms, one with no stairs and one that takes a few stairs to get up. There's an ADA accessible restroom through the sanctuary, and there's somebody at the back or one of the greeters can help you find where that is. And then there's also some restrooms down the stairs near the door that you came in. If you need anything, please ask, and welcome.
Thanks so much, Emily. I'm Brian Tate, and it's always an honor to be in this sacred space at Lafayette Avenue Presbyterian Church. And some of you know that I produce and organize events at cultural spaces all around the city. This is the second time I've held an event at and in collaboration with Lafayette Avenue Presbyterian. And I have to tell you, it's a wonderful, wonderful place to gather, in addition to being here on Sunday for service. So if this is your first time coming to LAPC, please don't make it your last time. I am really excited about today's program, not least of which because, oftentimes when I'm curating events, conversations like this, I put in a tremendous amount of research to find the right people to bring a particular issue to life and to connect with people in a very human and visceral way. This program is a little bit different. I did put a fair amount of research into it, but the real beauty of it is the participants that you're going to hear from are people that I've known for decades, and some of the closest people to me in my life here in New York City, who I have such admiration and respect for, and in some cases who did not know each other. So that's always an exciting opportunity, is to bring people together, which is the larger purpose of programs like these anyway, is to bring people together and to talk about things that sometimes don't get talked about enough in public settings. So we're very happy to be here to do that today. I'm going to read the curatorial statement because it captures so much of what I had wanted to say, and I wrote it when I had time to actually sit down and think. So I will read that as an entry point into what we're about to do. What defines the Black experience with disability, illness, injury, and healthcare in the United States? The CDC reports that 1 in 4 Black adults have a disability. How can their testimonies and wisdom guide and embolden people in Black communities and beyond, including those who do not yet have a disability? In her op-ed on the topic, Desiree Mwalimu-Banks honors Black activists who advanced disability rights from the 1940s onward. Reflecting on events closer to home, she writes, "Disability justice and its presence within the Black community became personal for my family." Disability policy activist Day Al-Muhammad has noted that, quote, "disability is one of the only identities that can happen to anyone at any time," unquote. Next year will mark the 35th anniversary of the American with Disabilities Act and the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. As the rights and ideals upheld by those documents face increasing threats, what happens when disability justice becomes personal for us all? Our day of culture and conversation will unfold as follows. We're going to start with a live reading by Desiree Mwalimu-Banks of the article that I just quoted from, which she wrote for PBS 13, entitled "Falling into FSHD and Disability in the Black Community." And we're so honored to have Desiree read this article live for the first time. It's a very special event with cello accompaniment by Sarah Overton, which makes this a very, very special occasion. So let's go right. Oh, and I also wanted to say that the projection and the music that you've been hearing up until now, these are images, photos taken by one of our panelists, Russell Frederick, a dear, dear brother of mine. And Russell will be on the panel, and you'll hear him today. And these are just some of the incredible images that he's captured of Black Brooklyn and Black pride and Black power throughout New York City. And the music that you've been listening to are recordings of a couple of ensembles featuring Mikel Mwalimu-Banks, who is also on the panel. And Mikel, one of my brother's dearest friends and brother. And also a vocalist for Burnt Sugar, and we've heard some of the Burnt Sugar offshoot band, Rebellum, I think, and also another project of Mikel's, Digital Diaspora. So that's the music that's been playing. Mikel's music has been playing while Russell's photos have been playing. And that alone has just been like heaven for me. So we're now about to switch over to hear from Desiree and Sarah. So please give them a very warm welcome.
I remember the bruises on his elbows, knees, and face, the way he could barely bring himself to utter the words between his tears and his breath. My husband had taken a fall on his way home from picking up a few groceries on a late summer evening in Harlem. He had suffered 5 similar events since 2017, each with varying degrees of severity. Up until that moment, we believed these episodic falls, which appeared to arise from seemingly nowhere, and the chronic pain that he managed were due to the effects of aging and what was then diagnosed as rheumatoid arthritis. I honestly have no logical explanation for the moment when I heard, "Take him to the neurologist," being whispered in my ear. It was my ancestors that nudged me to share this information with him after that fall, which ultimately led to my husband's official diagnosis with facioscapulohumeral muscular dystrophy. Muscular dystrophy is a progressive muscle degeneration that results in muscle atrophy and weakness. FSHD is a genetic form of muscular dystrophy. The Latin and anatomical term fasciae refers to the muscles of the face, scapula to the shoulder blades, and humera to the upper arms and bone that goes from the shoulder to the elbow. FSHD, also called FSH, occurs in both infantile and adult onset forms. Its classification as an inherited neuromuscular disorder can be further understood within its subgrouping as either FSHD1, dominantly inherited, or FSHD2, recessively inherited and less common. My husband's condition was identified as the adult onset of FSHD2, which means that he inherited one defective copy of a segment of DNA from both his parents, who may have been living with the disease or simply been its carriers. According to the FSHD Society, the world's largest grassroots advocacy organization for individuals with FSHD, an estimated 1 in 8,000 individuals are affected in America across race, age, gender, and ethnicity. Roughly 30% of these cases exist in families with no prior history of the condition. Americans comprise the largest global population of individuals affected with FSHD at 5.1 per 100,000 people. The Genetic and Rare Diseases Information Center, a division of the National Institute of Health, lists FSHD as one among over the 9,000 clinically defined rare diseases in the country. A rare disease is a condition that affects less than 200,000 people, according to the Orphan Drug Act of 1983, which incentivized the development of drugs to treat rare diseases. A scientific paper published in the European Journal of Human Genetics in 2019 confirmed that the global population of those living with rare diseases is estimated at 300 million. Which arguably makes rare diseases not that rare, and therefore a public health priority. My husband's official diagnosis with FSHD in January of 2020 arrived as a precursor to the global pandemic. We soon found ourselves in an administrative rabbit hole complicated by the global climate of fear and uncertainty that permeated the healthcare industry in the wake of COVID-19. While we discovered an abundance of information and resources for researchers exploring possible cures for FSHD, we did not find financial support for the individuals and families who live with the ever-changing and unpredictable nature of this condition. We didn't know the ways FSHD would immobilize my husband, but one fact became clear. He would be ineligible for disability benefits because his diagnosis came after the age of 65. Consequently, we learned that other benefits-related programs such as Social Security disability insurance and the supplemental security income come with their own maze of requirements that leave us just outside their reach. We also could not have foreseen how both the pandemic and FSHD would dually extinguish nearly all of my husband's income. The weight of these outcomes on our family's emotional, mental, and financial well-being was devastating. Connections between Black history and disability history are often overlooked, yet their roots are heavily entwined within the institution of American slavery. Drapetomania, also called runaway slave syndrome, was coined to pathologize the desire to escape slavery as a form of insanity as if desiring freedom was a disease. Dysesthesia Ethiopica, or hebitude of mind and obtuse sensibility of a body, a disease peculiar to Negroes, called by overseers rascality, as further described by Dr. Samuel A. Cartwright in his report on the diseases and peculiarities of the Negro race, characterized a failing work ethic among enslaved people as another mental disorder, recommended treatments for these disorders, thus created various categories of disability aimed at sustaining slavery's infrastructure. Drapetomania was followed by phrenology, the 19th century study of the human skull as a tool for classifying human nature. Under this debunked science, the alleged mental inferiority of Africans was rationalized as a justification for the continuation of slavery. The subsequent 19th century ugly laws, also known as unsightly beggar ordinances, which passed in cities like San Francisco, Chicago, and Omaha, ensured that all diseased, maimed, mutilated, or in any way deformed people remained barred from the city's public streets. These laws targeted the poor and disabled populations of undesirables, including immigrants, racial minorities, prostitutes, and homosexuals. The importance of intersectionality to Black Americans with disabilities who face additional discrimination and oppression cannot be overstated. This relationship has traditionally been reinforced by the view that disability is something to overcome and or hide, a view popularized by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who preferred that his wheelchair not be visible in photographs. The inner conflict between pride and shame within the Black community is substantial. Pride in one's Blackness has been a tool for resistance, yet too much pride has led to discrimination and abuse from the dominant culture. Black disability pride, then, is a phrase we must continue to unpack with greater sensitivity to and awareness of this intersectionality. Shame and fear exist in different permutations across the spectrum of marginalized communities that also live with disabilities. Navigating these spaces between these identities is both layered and complex, and often presents the greatest barrier to self-confidence for disabled persons from communities of color or other marginalized groups. It took 2 years for my husband to give himself permission to be seen in public with his wheelchair for numerous reasons. He says, "The biggest part of the shame for me is always having to ask somebody for assistance when I've always done it for myself. As a Black man, I was always taught to show that you weren't weak or vulnerable, that you weren't a victim. Then I'm always being eyed because I'm driving around in a wheelchair that's high functioning, whereas other Black folks are using walkers and antiquated wheelchairs. Sometimes they ask me how much my chair costs, and most of the time I don't tell them, because for most Black folks, that chair is financially out of reach. I feel badly because what I have should be standard, and I'm seeing my folks struggle in a way they shouldn't have to." The policing of Black disabled bodies has been happening for decades. Violence, abuse, and death while incarcerated are all too familiar experiences that take place in disabled communities. People with disabilities are more likely to be arrested and criminalized for behaviors related to their disability, and this exists at an extreme for Black people with disabilities. Black Americans make up 38% of the incarcerated population, despite representing only 13% of US residents. Over half of the individuals who are killed by law enforcement have disabilities that are either non-apparent, hidden, visible, or invisible. and more than half of that population consists of Black Americans. Black folks with disabilities are more likely to be arrested by the time they turn 28, at twice the rate of their white counterparts. Due to limited research on the intersection of these experiences, we do not have an accurate understanding of the lived experiences of Black people with disabilities in jails and prison systems. The Black community constitutes 13% of the American population and possesses 2% of the nation's wealth. At present, 5.6 million Black Americans live with a disability, and 42% live in poverty. While current research does not provide a sufficient evidence to indicate prevalence of FSHD, for instance, in one racial group versus another, the lack of financial resources, health insurance, and consequently, the lack of access to adequate care places Black Americans with this condition at a greater risk for higher mortality rates. These socioeconomic disadvantages are intimately linked to the rise of significant health disparities that live at the intersection between the aging and disabled within the Black community. Additionally, a dependence on Social Security income and the impact of the pandemic on retirement and savings accounts due to job losses have created additional obstacles to sustaining a very high quality of living while aging and Black, and especially with a disability. We must expand the conversation on aging to go beyond preventive care for common conditions such as cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and stroke in Black communities. We must also account for the possible onset and impact of disability. How do you make sense of something that feels nonsensical? How do you surrender to an experience that invokes a perpetual state of annihilation and regather yourself inside it? Living with disability is an arduous journey for the disabled and those that care for them. As an instinctual nurturer, caring for my husband is both an honor and a trial by fire. FSHD is a progressive condition, and as it evolves, my husband's needs change. Who he was and what he was able to do last month, or even last week, doesn't remain the same. Each day is its own unique journey that calls for varying levels of flexibility, creativity, and patience. My husband's disability sits in the middle of a Venn diagram that is we. We are constantly negotiating our boundaries within those spheres. There are days when I'm full of energy and ready for anything, and others where I feel angry, discouraged, and burnt out. Finding ways to communicate that allow us to anticipate and perceive FSHD's movements challenges our physical, mental, and emotional stamina. We are consistently creating intentional spaces for intimacy and connection that can be compromised in this dynamic. My husband's disability also offers opportunities for us to stay present to the gifts we otherwise might take for granted in our fast-paced lifestyle. In this way, it's served as a catalyst for the deepening of my devotion to him and my personal growth. Caregiving has gifted me with new psychic muscles that I'm learning to exercise while remembering to center my own care in the process. We need more care in healthcare for Black elders in the disability community. Centuries of institutional racism and discrimination continue to leave a profound imprint on Black bodies. Black disabled persons who are aging are met with the dual challenge of navigating their disability while sorting through the red tape involved in self-managing their care, gaining access to the support systems to which they are entitled, including outreach, case management, nursing, and legal services, can be extremely time-consuming and emotionally draining. Serving as my husband's advocate in these administrative capacities has heightened my awareness of the significant challenges that confront many Black people, particularly elders living with disability. Exploring the works of Black activists, artists, and advocates who are disabled and have found diverse ways to maneuver within these systems has been vital to my understanding of the Black disability community. Valisa Thompson, the founder of Ramp Your Voice, creates an online platform centering issues that shape her experiences as a Black disabled woman. Her organization also provides crucial resources to disabled people and to key stakeholders who are committed to equity and inclusivity within the disability community. Cancer survivor, entrepreneur, speaker, and facilitator Carrie Gray is the founder of the National Alliance of Melanin-Disabled Advocates, which offers opportunities for disabled leaders of color and cross-cultural allies to connect and learn from one another about racial justice and disability. Double transplant survivor and public speaker Ola Ojewumi is the founder of two nonprofits, the Sacred Hearts Children Transplant Foundation and Project Ascend, and a frequent political commentator on PBS and Democracy Now! She advocates for equal access to affordable health care and has spoken alongside several notable public officials. Independent artist, dancer, and public speaker Alice Shepard engages disability culture and history through her award-winning choreography and performance. Dancer, choreographer, writer, and adaptive wear model Jerron Herman focuses his creative practice on articulating images of freedom in his performances and written expositions. His 2021 speaking series discourse, Disabled Artists at the Joyce, created a space for New York City-based disabled artists to showcase their work at the Joyce Theater. Educator and disability rights advocate Dania Manderson speaks eloquently about the experiences of people with disabilities, while she also continues to teach. Her essay in USA Today, Does My Wheelchair Make You Uncomfortable?, is a must-read. We can support the Black disabled people in our communities by identifying how disability justice can be woven into our current advocacy practices. Acknowledge and respect that disability is unique to the individual and exists on a spectrum across race, age, gender, sexual orientation, and ethnicity. Disability can be non-apparent, hidden, or invisible. It can be genetic or non-hereditary. The seemingly obvious systems that are used to support the mobility and function of disabled persons may or may not adequately address their needs. Therefore, levels of comfort for individuals with disabilities at any given time should not be assumed. Black disabled persons are multiply marginalized, and Black disability politics must be understood within this framework of intersectionality. Support the diversity of works and advocacy being generated by Black disabled artists, activists, writers, and allies. Participate in Black disabled leadership training to become an informed advocate for the Black disability experience in your communities. Become an advocate. Disability justice is justice for all. When we continue to view Black disability as an intersectional movement, we know that the work of dismantling racism must also include dismantling ableism. Disability activism is rooted in advocating for a culture of care. Explore ways to embody and express care for folks living with disabilities. Understand ableism and your positionality. Engage courageously in conversations on how you may consciously or unconsciously contribute to the erasure of or discrimination toward disabled communities. Investigate histories of disability within your own lineages and ensure timely screening for disabilities where possible. Create inclusive professional environments for disabled persons by seeking out and employing disabled writers who are contributing their voices to stories beyond the lens of disability. Support initiatives such as the Disability Visibility Project, founded and directed by disabled activist, writer, editor, media maker, and consultant Alice Wong, or the community and participatory performances and disability culture created by writer and teacher Petra Kuppers, the artistic director of the Olympias. Join others in the pursuit of amendments to the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, which does not provide sufficient accountability mechanisms to address violations. Additionally, we found that these New York City-based organizations are making headway in serving disabled people in Black communities. And they include the Center for Independence of the Disabled in New York, the Center for Disability Advocacy Rights, New York Alliance for Inclusion and Innovation, AHRC New York City, JobPath New York City, NYU Disabilities, Inclusion and Accessibility Working Group, DIA. While this is not an exhaustive list, it is a starting point for locating oneself within the disability journey. As is often the case with systems of oppression that we face across the divide, meaning and impact can be difficult to understand until its collective presence shows up in your reality. Disability justice and its presence within the Black community became personal for my family. Through my husband's disability, we began to understand the power of intentional community. We have received a tremendous outpouring of love and support, the significance of which cannot be overemphasized. We would not be in a position to face the immensity of the changes that disability has brought into our lives without the sincere care and compassion of our beloved community. The phone calls, Zoom check-ins, letters, dinners, potlucks, jam sessions, and impromptu visits have veritably sustained both my husband and I through the unforgiving nature of FSHD's progression. This path has been overwhelming, yet inspiring. I see it now as an invitation to listen deeply, to move in our bodies and through this world with more care and respect for all the details along the way. Living inside of a body that is both Black and disabled offers that person and their community opportunities to become conscious of a psychic journey that is sibylline in nature. CRIP is an insider term that has been reclaimed by the disability community to describe all persons living with disabilities across diagnoses. CRIP culture is indeed encrypted. The use of this word is intended to generate pride instead of shame in those who self-identify as disabled. The book, CRIP Theory, uses the term as an inquiry into an academic discourse on the intersectionality between disability and queer identity politics. It asks us to consider our agency in constructing narratives about the ideal human body and how we participate in sustaining an able-bodied heteronormativity. My husband has entered this elaborate universe of meaning that is specific and unique to his own lived experience with disability. In their book, The Future is Disabled, Prophecies, Love Notes, and Mourning Songs, Leah Lakshmi Piepsna Samarasinha writes, "We're supposed to be the first ones to die, but we have technology and care skills that are going to end up saving all of us. The world is terrifying, but I keep betting on us because we know how to survive." The Black disability community has been sustained in the schools of these sciences for centuries. Perhaps the inner visioning and exponential consciousness that arises in Black disability experiences can offer an important link to understanding and embracing our evolutionary potential as human beings and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you all. Please give another round of applause for Desiree, Mwalimu-Banks, and Sarah Overton. We're going to do a little tech changeover and move out the projector and the screen and set things up for our panel, which will take only a moment. I think, does everyone have a program? The program from the front? That has the bios of folks. And if you want to read about the people who are going to be participating, for any of you who don't already know the people who are going to be participating, if you'll give us just a moment to get some things set up, this will just take a second. I was going to say just talk to your neighbors, but I see everyone is doing that, so that's great. We'll be starting with the panel in just a moment.
That's great. Good to see you, baby. Bro, getting great over here. Bro, describe it, bro. You're right.
We say thank you again to Desiree Overton for the cello.
Yes.
Please give her a round of applause. I want to also acknowledge and thank for her presence here today, New York City Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities Commissioner Christina Curry, who's over in the corner.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. Commissioner Curry has just dropped off a stack of these flyers. NYC at Work. We recruit, pre-screen, and match talented New Yorkers with disabilities to jobs. And you can see and it's a lot of information on this one sheet, and they're right over there at the table. I also want to say a thank you to Dana and Allison, who are our ASL interpreters today, for being here. And I would be so remiss without saying a special thank you to the team that has worked so diligently to put all of this together today. And I will thank them by name at the end of the program, but I just wanted to acknowledge their work, which is making things happen for us today. So please give that group a collective round of applause. We're now moving to our panel discussion, and so excited and honored to have these folks here. I will introduce them only by name. Everyone's bios is in the printout that you have. Please give a welcome to panelist Mikel Mwalimu-Banks. Panelist Russell Frederick.
Yeah.
And our moderator, Niama Safia Sandy. Niama, we're turning it over to you. Thank you. And we'll do a Q&A afterwards.
I'm going to need a different microphone. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. No. Let's try that again. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Lovely. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much, Brian, for this invitation. Thank you so much to Lafayette Avenue Presbyterian and their team for having us and setting up this incredible support for Brian's vision. I'm so pleased to be here with you all. I want to start by thanking you both for being willing to share your journey with us in this very intimate way. I got some questions for you.
All right, then.
All right.
Might get some answers from you.
Let's get into it. And also, Desiree, thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Another round for Sarah, please. Sarah, our wonderful cello player. Thank you. Okay. Gosh, okay. I just want to start out with talking with the two of you, Frederick, Russell, and Mikel, about how you initially navigated your symptoms that led to your diagnoses. Like, what were your first sort of immediate physical challenges?
Okay, great question. Can you all hear me? We're just gonna turn out. Can you hear me? I got a deep voice, I'm sorry. All right. Is this better? Yes, all right. Okay, so the question was.
That's okay. I wondered how you initially navigated those first symptoms when your illness initially manifested.
Yes, so for me, everyone, and first of all, I want to thank all of you for taking your time on your Sunday. We have the Tonkin Avenue Street Festival, but y'all chose to be here. So with that, I want y'all to give a round of applause for yourselves for coming. Thank you. You value your time, value your presence. And again, a round of applause for the creator, the curator of culture and cool, Mr. Brian Tate. So for me, it was in 2015. I was in Ethiopia teaching a photojournalism workshop for the United Nations Educational, Science, and Cultural Organization. And while I was teaching my workshop, I was just taking some photographs with my manual camera. And then I started to notice I couldn't see sharply. And at this time, I've been wearing contacts for several years. And I just thought my contacts were just a little messed up. I had a bad set of contacts. So I changed my contacts, and I noticed I still couldn't see sharply out of my right eye. I wasn't experiencing any pain. No, didn't see any physical changes to my eye. And I just continued, and I just started to make this adjustment to just now take pictures with my left eye. When I came back to the States, this was in May 2015, came back to the States, and I did not have health care coverage. And I have been working independently as a photographer since 2009. And from 2009 through to 2015, every year I applied for medical coverage, I was denied. Every single time. And I went to my optometrist who's been prescribing my contacts for years, and just to get seen. And she gave me a new set of contact lenses, and I put them in, and I still had this issue. And I couldn't understand what the problem was, and she said to me, Russell, these contacts are fine. I proceeded to go then to New York Pioneer Hospital, and it was then that I got the diagnosis that just I wasn't prepared for. On that day, ophthalmologist told me that my retina was peeling off of my cornea, and that I had a detached retina and an aggressive form of glaucoma. I was floored, and I told him that I was a photojournalist and a documentary photographer. I had him pull up my website, and he looked at my work, and I told him I was teaching some workshops in Africa. And he told me that the diagnosis was very serious. He said to me I was going to need to have a retinal attachment surgery. He told me if I opted not to have the surgery, I'll be blind within a year. And I asked him, how did this happen? And he said to me he was, excuse me just a bit, unsure because the majority of retinal detachments happen with some kind of trauma to the eye, but that wasn't the case for me. So I just really tried to, I had a lot of difficulty accepting it, and from that moment, my life forever changed. I don't want to take up any more time, Mikel.
No, it's okay. I mean, a lot of people heard my wife read a big part of my disability origin story. It started way before then. I started going, I was a DJ as well as a musician, traveling musician. Some of my band members are here in the house. I would, when I was DJing, I lived in a 3-story walk-up, and it became harder and harder for me to get my records upstairs. And one night, one of the maintenance guys from my building saw me struggling with my records and was like, "Yo, you having a problem? I got you." And he took the records and he put them on his shoulder and ran up the stairs. And at that moment, I realized, wow, something's really going on with me. And I went to the doctors, and, unfortunately, I don't want to just say it's a feeling. I really believe that the way that they look at you is, and I went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, 10 weeks of physical therapy. And so I just did the 10 weeks of physical therapy. Tony still had to bring my records upstairs when I came from gigs, And I was having all these falls, and one of the cats who used to help me get on stage is here, his guitar player Ben Tyree. I'd whisper to Ben or to Andre LaSalle or to Chris, the drummer, or whoever I could, whoever was closest. "Yo, man, help me get on stage." Because once I was on stage, I could stand and deliver, but just getting up, and I didn't know what it was until my wife said, I had a fall, and she said, go to the neurologist. The neurologist I saw looked like Gilgamesh. A really, really old cat, man. His dude's skin was gray. And he just asked me to disrobe, waist up, and took one look at me and went, "You have FSHD." And I was like, "How do you know that?" And he said, the way your shoulder blades are protruding is one of the common symptoms of it. He's like, "You've probably had that your entire life." And I was like, "Yes, I have." He's like, "Yeah, that's one of the things, and I guess it's just progressed." And it continues to do so.
Okay,
Excuse
thank
me.
you. Thank you so much. I know that was probably difficult. This next one is probably going to also be difficult.
It's a difficult convo.
I just want to give you the disclaimer, though.
Thank you.
How did you handle the emotional elements of that as it relates to notions of Black masculinity, vulnerability, and strength?
Great question. At the time, I'll never forget when I walked out of the New York Eye Hospital. I walked over to Union Square Park, and I sat over there in the circle, and I just cried. I cried. I cried. I cried. I called my mom because my mother was an emergency room nurse for about 45 years. And I was just devastated. And in learning of sickness, I first thought, and at this time, I was 45, and I had really no health issues at all. I worked out 6 days a week. I ate well, didn't smoke, didn't drink, and I was really just concerned, and I was really wondering, is this a battle I can win? And the next thing I thought of was, at this time as well, I was the primary caretaker. I was taking care of my grandfather, who was aging, and in steady decline. And I've been taking care of my grandfather since 2007. At the same time, I was also the men's program director for this community organization called the Kings Against Violence Initiative, started by my best friend, Dr. Robert Gore. And we were serving and mentoring young men and women 4 to 5 days a week. And at the same time, I'm self-employed. I am building my career. I'm teaching these workshops, and I still have a contract to teach another workshop in South Sudan. With all of this, and also too, during this time, I'm part of an organization called Kamonge, a black photographers organization founded in 1963, and was working on some projects with them. I felt I had this big responsibility to my community, and it was a time I felt like I started asking God, what is the lesson here? What is the lesson? How am I going to get through this? And I also started to think, like, am I really going to go blind? And how am I going to take care of myself, my grandfather, and also too, I'm not married, I don't have any children. Everything is on me. And I really just started to question myself. And I couldn't find the answers. And at this time, I felt like I was the weight of everything. It started to really take its toll on me first, I think, mentally, where even the demands of just taking care of my grandfather, this alone was a full-time job. My grandfather, my people from Panama, my grandfather is also Jamaican, so y'all already know. This is a whole lot of pepper sauce and resistance. And with all of that, it was I think a time where I struggled with really asking for help, because as a man, how I grew up, I was taught, if a man don't work, a man don't eat. And people were depending on me. And I could not let my community down. And I gave everybody my best. I gave my grandfather my best. But I wasn't the best to myself. Mikel, I pass the mic to you.
Man, I really feel that. I'm from South Jamaica, Queens, and man, the way I was raised was like, you gotta stand on your own 2 feet on your own. You gotta be able to, whatever it is you're doing, you gotta be able to get out there and hustle. And so when I got the diagnosis, basically, when the doctor, after the first guy that saw me just looked at me and said I got FSHD, that went into a whole year and a half of going to doctors and being tested. I mean, they do all kind of little probe tests where they touch a muscle and make it jump and all of that. They did all of that. Finally, the cat says that I have FSHD and it's official. And I looked at him and I was like, all right, so what do we do now? And he had no response whatsoever. Dude, you know who Scooby-Doo is? Dude Scooby-Dooed me. He was like, and I was just like so blown away. I was like, wow, this guy. And so I went further. I was like, so what you're telling me is that my muscles are gonna wither and I'm just gonna be like a bone structure without movement. And he didn't say a single word to me, not a single word. And yes, I was shaking, but I kind of took it in stride. I took it in stride, one, because there's no medication, there's no therapy, and there's no cure. And so on a certain level, that left it in my hands. And I see how they deal with disability in general, so I was like, okay, so eventually I'm gonna need some tools. So as my mobility withered, my wife was like, baby, you need a cane. And so, of course, I'm a rock and roll ninja, and I got a fly cane, a side cane, and I used that for a little while. The first day, it took me a while to do it, to actually use the cane, but the first day I did it, these two elders were like, ooh, baby, where you get that cane from? That's a nice cane. And my wife just looked at me like, I told you. And then, gratefully, I've been a semi-decent human being most of my life. So people showed me love, and before I actually really needed the wheelchair, my wife helped coordinate with some old friends of mine and got me the wheelchair that I'm rolling in now. And that took a lot of getting used to. I was afraid to cross the street. I was afraid to go out by myself, afraid to cross the street, like I was 6 years old again. And I really, even to this moment, I feel like, what they call in the streets a Vic. I'm always worried that somebody's just gonna take advantage of me because of the position I'm in. So emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, it has affected my man ego in the vastest of ways. My let's be specific, my black man ego. Let's be specific. In a way that I'm still not over. I'm still reasoning with that.
Something else I would like to say. That was also very challenging for me was when I was informed that this was my condition. The other thing was I did not want no one to know.
Take it easy. All right. Thank you all. So, I have like an abundance of questions. I literally have like 2 full pages of questions. So, you can count on me to be prepared. If you know me, that's true. But I'm wondering, there's so many threads that I want to pull based on what you just said. And also, can we have a time check? All right. I still got a page and a half of questions, though. Okay. So actually, that was a great segue. So I was like, wait, stay there. Don't go anywhere. I have a question about, in our conversation, we had a preliminary conversation, the 4 of us, I guess almost a whole month ago now. But we spoke about this invisible layer. And obviously, in your case, that's not necessarily the case now, but it was for quite a while. And so I would love for you to speak about how you would push back against moments where people attempted to erase your experience.
Boy. All right, so first off, if I could rewind a little bit, it was this diagnosis was so hard to accept. And at the same time, I'm facing this imminent threat to not only just my eyesight, it's just before my livelihood, absolutely, but my life. And just being able to do something like even reading an email on the computer, reading mail, reading the newspaper, and I am a voracious reader. All of these things became difficult to look at some of my photographs, my negatives. And the other thing was, I felt that I had to keep it private because if the industry learned, my career was over. And I'm already a militant black man whose work is visual activism, where I take photographs of our people in marginalized communities to really change the way the world sees our people. The purpose of me taking photographs is to redefine the world, redefine our image, and show the world the humanity of our people, even when we're not in the best of times. So my work is always been very political, and I have faced backlash and discrimination from it. And now with this diagnosis, I felt that I had to keep it private, but at the same time, there's only so long I probably could. And when I had the surgery, the pain I went through physical pain. It was part of the rehabilitation process. I had to lay down, face down, almost like in a plank position for 30 days straight with the retinal reattachment surgery. I was informed that if I was to sit up or even stand for even a short period of time, the surgery, because of the perpendicular position, it could rip off the surgery and the damage would be even worse. So I had to lay face down on my bed 30 days straight. I'm so thankful for my mom, who took off 3 weeks from work to give me the eye drops that I had to take every 2 hours. I wouldn't have made it. On top of that, it was my grandfather. And him needing help, I'm needing help. But I couldn't send out an SOS call. And at least in my mind, I didn't think I could. And this suffering, that I think we as black folk, and especially black men, we always told, you know what, we gotta be strong. And being strong, it's natural for us, but it's also exhausting. And you gotta forgive me if I go on left a little bit, everybody. I am still, I would say, after that time, trying to navigate just staying alive, not being able to work the way I used to, and the expectations that were on me. And then I thought people didn't think it was as serious as it was. So did my best, and thankful I'm still here, and thankful for all those who showed up for me when I did make a call. I don't know if I answered the question. You gotta forgive me. Sorry.
That's okay. Do you need the question again?
Yeah.
Okay. So we spoke about the invisible layer of this before. That's fine. I would love for you to speak about how you would have to push back against moments where people attempted to erase.
My condition started way before I got an official diagnosis. And I actually wasn't really certain what was going on. I'm older than everybody, especially all my bandmates and stuff. So I thought, maybe it was just some aging, and I kind of, like I said, I would ask, whoever was nearest to the stairs or however I was to get on the stage to give me a hand. And, you know, the amazing thing is none of them said to me, "What's wrong?" You know, they just helped me. And so I was able to kind of maneuver through that stage of it. I think one of the last times I really felt like I had to let go of the invisibility. Right before the pandemic, we played the Apollo Theater. We did the music of Shaft while the Shaft movie played. So we were the music to the movie. It was an amazing event. But when I got there, you know, I used to work at the Apollo, so I remembered, wow, there's, you know, hospitality is in the basement, and then the dressing rooms are upstairs. And so, you know, me and Stairs were already not really friends, and I was struggling to go up the stairs, but when I got to the first dressing room, it said Burnt Sugar Ladies. And I was like, oh man, I love my sisters, but they're gonna have to climb that extra set of stairs because I need this dressing room. And you know, they were all like, cool. And just going up and down those stairs, I forget who I asked to help me get to my position because it was all the way across the stage, across a sea of wires on the floor. And I asked a couple of people to hold my hand, and they got me in a position. But that was really the first time that I was completely visible in my condition.
So, I think some of these questions we've sort of touched upon. I do want us to spend some time talking about the brokenness of the healthcare systems wherein we operate, the dysfunction and the bias attached to outcomes for Black and brown people in particular. And if you could sort of just share how difficult, I mean, you sort of talked about like the lapse of time that it took, but I just want to wonder about how difficult it was for you to receive a diagnosis and a treatment plan and develop a sort of clear understanding of what you needed to expect in that process from your doctors and whatever other medical care you were receiving at the time.
Situation, like I was given 0 meds, 0 therapy, 0 hope. They just told me. And on one level, it's a blessing because I'm not looking for help from them. I discovered that acupuncture, chiropractic, and massage helps with, I don't like to call it pain, I like to call it perpetual discomfort. Like right now, my neck is giving me grief, you know? It's just perpetual discomfort. And I found that those 3 things help. But in general, you know, massage ain't covered by nobody. You know, most chiropractors are hundreds and hundreds of dollars a visit. And so I've not found a chiropractor as of yet. I'm still hopeful. I have a brethren who comes through maybe once every 2 months or so and gives me some free body work, which gives me immense relief. I'm going to say his name. His name is James Nicholson. I'm going to say his name because I love him, and like if you need some body work, like you need to check this brother. He's really wonderful. And I just recently found and just tripped over an acupuncturist that actually takes my insurance. So that's been a real blessing and a real relief. But yeah, there's no medication, and there's nothing for me to look forward that isn't generated by me and my wife and y'all. y'all, like, my healing moments are, I was saying this to Russell before this conversation. I was like, when something messed up happens to you, you ask, why? Why me? Why? And the only time you got to answer for why is when you're a little kid. A grown man, there's no answer to why. A friend shifted my focus and told me to ask how. And that's been a real blessing for me to be able to adjust that. And part of the healing has been, because I asked, what am I supposed to learn from this? And the thing that has been immense, I mean huge, is that I'm so loved. I am so loved. I had no clue. I had no clue how much love there was in this world for me.
Yes, to speak on the healthcare system, right? Where's the care? And it kind of ties into the prior question about the invisible disability, because what I came to realize is, since people didn't see me suffering, they couldn't see my pain, they just thought, yo, you good. Yo, you look good. You must be good. And that there is nothing wrong. And then I got this very just crushing reality when it was fast forwarding. I had my first eye surgery in 2015. I ended up having 5 eye surgeries. And in having those surgeries, I remember it was 2017, 2018, I applied for disability. And the paperwork, oh my God. Listen, and then now I have limited eyesight, and I'm trying to do this by myself. And what was really just difficult was how I think the things that just became so, I would say, just effortless. All of a sudden, I was struggling. Like, I couldn't believe how long it would take me. And just how fatigued I became just trying to even fill out a form. And then there was no support. Fast forwarding, my situation, my health kind of stabilized for a few years. 2018 was when I had my last eye surgery, but it was actually 2023. My ophthalmologist now at Cornell told me my eye pressure was high and I was going to need a 6th eye surgery. And she said, Russell, this is going to be painful. And y'all know if a doctor tells you a surgery is going to be painful. And I told her, I said, Dr. Van Tassel, I ain't got it. And proceeding into 2024, I'm losing work. So it became public, but I tried to keep private. It became public. I came out with my vision loss in 2022 because my mother actually challenged me. My mother asked me a question. She was like, Russell, do you think you become a better photographer since you've lost some of your eyesight? I was like, Mom, is this a trick question? Come on now. And she was like, well, you photograph President Obama, you photograph Dapper Dan, Numero magazine. She's like, the stuff you did in Minnesota for George Floyd. And I'm saying all of this to say, because when in 2024, work was drying up for me, I fell behind on my rent. And I was trying to get help. And I reached out to all of these organizations, Visions, the Lighthouse, Helen Keller, Catholic Charities, and I got nothing. It took a month for me to talk to somebody from Catholic Charities. I told people, and then I went down, and then I hit rock bottom. And I had to go to the public assistance office. First time in my life. And we in church, I can't say what I really want to say. MFs told me I didn't qualify for the one-shot deal. Told me I needed to have a job. I was like, what? I said, what are you talking about? I've been paying into this system since I was 16. I'm 53. What do you mean? I said, yo, this is a 911. I need help. And they said, well, I've been working for myself for 15 years. They said, well, you're gonna need a co-signer, a guarantor, someone to be a co-signer on it, because you have to pay it back. That day, I was so humiliated. I said, wait a minute. I'm paying my taxes and people coming to this country right now getting benefits, and you telling me you can't help me? And I'm born here, and I've been paying into this system. I walked from Skimmerhorn Street, and I walked to the Brooklyn Bridge, and I was about to jump. I was so angry and just felt played. My landlord wants her money. I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to get help. And then I gotta just thank God, because I just thought about my mother, and I thought about all of this work that I've done in documenting and this responsibility I have to my community. I was like, it would be a mess if I go out this way. And I want to send a special thank you to Sister Zawadi Morris of the BK Reader paper, because I reached out to her and I said to her, I asked her if she'd be willing to do a story because I needed a GoFundMe. And it was then highlight what Mikel was saying. She agreed to help me, and I couldn't believe the love that came out from me. I couldn't believe it.
Thank you for that. It kind of feels strange to switch gears right now, but I think you've sort of answered the questions that I was going to ask next. I think I do want to maybe share a part of what I was going to say about that, because it is connected to what you both just shared. In our preliminary conversation, you said, Russell, go where the love is. And I think, that small reframe is really just the turning point in all of the journey, right? In terms of how you even conceive of yourself in relationship to the community that you're in. Okay. So now let's talk about art, because we are all artists here. That's me. My daily alarm that I did not turn off, my apologies. Okay, so, well, there's multiple things here. I think creativity is among the highest forms of connection to God and spirit. And so, how has this journey shifted anything for you regarding your faith?
I was pretty much an agnostic because I was raised Catholic, and they kind of turned me into an agnostic. But I've always felt that there was something much larger than me, and I felt attached to that. And so I started to see myself as a cell in the body of God, for lack of a better word. And I started to see that through the understanding that we're the only creatures here that can create, like, whatever we dream, whatever's in our head. We can manifest that into three-dimensional space, or sometimes two-dimensional space, depending on which art is, but we can manifest that, and so I've always had a God understanding. I think the shift for me is that I now have to kind of rediscover what creativity means to me, because, I'm a crippled rocker, I was, my job was jumping in the van or jumping in the plane and, going to other places and rocking out. That was the job. And now, people I work with are about to jump in the van next week or whatever, and I'm not capable of doing that anymore. So I've had to rethink what I'm doing in a lot of different ways. I'm not able to exercise the muscle that I use regularly. I'm not singing regularly because I'm not working regularly. So it's really changed that focus, and so I'm now looking at some different means of how to express myself. And I started a podcast. I have a book. Okay, yeah, but I'm looking at different means now. And so it's really shifted my direction in terms of like what creativity means to me, and how am I going to find that way to get it out of me.
Actually, this just came to me. I was not intending to say this to you, but have you thought about teaching?
Yes. A friend just sent me some information about If I Tale, and that they do courses online. So yes, I am thinking about teaching.
Thank you. I thought about specifically like stagecraft in particular. I think you should think about that.
I will. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. This is kind of my gift. I just like repeat what you just said, but
Right on,
in a
right
different way.
Right on.
Okay. Thank you. So, same question for you.
Creativity and faith. Okay. Yeah, so faith has always been a very big part of my life. My mother and grandmother, listen, from my childhood, I went to Catholic school, Baptist, Lutheran, Episcopal. I think whichever church had a sale, my mother was like, that's where you're going to school. But you're going to get the Word of God every day. And in my adulthood and Sunday school, so there was really no days off. And in my adulthood, I came to see the value of it as we go through these valleys of life. And me being chosen and accepting and embracing a purpose-driven life. And I am the first artist of my family, of my generation, first entrepreneur. And in choosing, in making a commitment to photography at the age of 27, and I walked away from a career as a nurse. I had 1 year nursing school completed, walked away from it once I picked up a camera. And then coming to terms with my diagnosis, I've always was a film photographer. And then I started to embrace digital photography and also in knowing that this was all I had, this was my gift, that maybe part of this lesson in my vision loss, there was going to be some addition through subtraction in how I may see and communicate with the world, maybe in a more profound way. I started then thinking about curating. I started to think about filmmaking, getting more with education. And I can say my faith never wavered. Mikel brought up something very important about saying, why me? I never said, why me? I always said, it could be anybody. Why not me? And for me, it was always about ancestors, God, universe. What is the lesson here? What is the lesson? And please send me a messenger and a message that I can follow so that I can continue to use these gifts and skills that I've been blessed with. And one thing that just came more into clarity was that I accomplished a lot on my own, but I felt that God was telling me your work, your solo career is about to change. You about to join a band. You got people who love you, and this next growth spurt for you, it's not going to be as one. It's going to be with a team. It's going to be with your community, and embrace collaboration, embrace that also too, this next chapter of life in your career is still growing. And proud to say, here it is. In a couple of weeks, I'm about to have my directorial debut, a documentary series on PBS TV.
Thank you. Brian? What? Oh, tragic. Okay, sure. So we're going to actually open it up to the audience for questions. I think this microphone will become the audience microphone if people have questions.
Good evening. Hi, everyone. My name is Woki Massacoy, and I do not subscribe to my diagnosis, although I am very aware that I do go through the things that are similar to the diagnosis, if not by name. So my question is, I have two questions. Can I ask two questions? Okay. So the first one is, how do you stay soft, compassionate, and malleable through the diagnosis and now through your search for your treatment?
That might be that's kind of an easy question to answer, just because I don't know if you ever heard elders say, "Girl, you're a pain in my neck." Well, as you get older, I'll be 72 this year. As you get older, your body responds to your emotional state and your mental state. And so it doesn't behoove you to carry anger. Anger is a state of mind where you're upset with yourself over what somebody else did. And so, it's an easy learn to that you need softness, and that, and the people around you help. I'm like really, I can't even describe how lucky I am to have a ring on my finger and have somebody who has got me as my warrior. Like when he was talking about all the paperwork and all the administration and all that stuff, man, I got somebody who got my back like that. So that helps too.
Just a second. So, just a minute, because I would like to answer, because technically I am also a disabled person. It's not technical, it's facts. It is not visible. If you don't know, then, I'm probably not going to tell you. But for those who are in the room and do know, you know. So I think the important thing there is just, as you were saying, to retain control of your own emotional state, because I think often, particularly for those of us who have autoimmune conditions, which eventually end up causing these like way bigger things that require surgery and the other methods of physical deterioration, it is all working in tandem. You have to keep control of yourself, always.
Yes, say anger will steal more from you than it can probably fuel you. And for me, I can say I've always been a compassionate person. I've always been a community servant. I don't know any other way to be. And I think in walking good and being of service, that output will serve you well for you receiving whatever it is you may need. It will, and I think naturally even your karma, your aura, and the hardships of having a disability, and let me say this to you, I refuse to accept that I had a disability until last year. I never ever accepted it. I refuse. I never said I was disabled. And it wasn't until it took 6 months for me to speak to someone to get help with Helen Keller Services for the Blind. And it was then when it was really because of legal reasons, I had to accept that I had a disability. And even then, I said, this doesn't take away from my mind. It doesn't take away from my purpose. All it means is, okay, I have to work a little bit differently. And there are also there are people out here much worse than me. And I would always think of that like, okay, things may not be the way they used to be, but at this point in my life, it's halftime. And when I'm saying halftime in the context is I'm at this midpoint of life, and this next half of life is going to be about living and being better than everything I learned in the first half of life. And moving with compassion, and also to something else that I don't think we do enough of in our community is grace. Showing each other grace. Just because, we are strong, and as a man we look strong, and hey, our appearance is even maybe impeccable, you never know what someone else is going through. Everybody in here is going through something. COVID made some of us, a lot more of us, more compassionate with each other. At this point, we are all we got. We all we got. So, compassion, yeah, that's the medicine right there, sis.
Yes. So the next one is, I am still experiencing what unconditional love is, as you all have expressed. How do you take care of those that support you unconditionally?
Wow. I don't know if I'm taking care of them, per se, but, when you let somebody know, a lot of times we're very guarded with our feelings, and especially for men, men are very, keep their feelings close. But I've been going through some experiences where I honestly have to say to certain people, like, wow, like, I couldn't have done this without you, or just the acknowledgement of how their love has affected you and propelled you. I too have a GoFundMe, and one of the sayings that I have now is love is the currency, and the currency is love. Because it's this, it's a cyclical thing. It's not just this one-sided thing, and here, saying thank you and saying I love you and saying how grateful you are and showing it, because love is a verb, is really been powerful medicine for me, and I've received so much medication from so many places I've completely did not expect, and so I've had to find different ways to say thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes, so to respond to the question, as Niama said earlier when we had our prior conversation, something, a mantra that I came to live by, and it was learned about going where the love is, because I didn't get unconditional love. I can't say that was something that I received, in my childhood, in my adulthood, and then even with the diagnosis, it was a lot more judgment. More judgment. I think a lot of people thought my condition, I was exaggerating when I told them really what was going on, and that it wasn't as serious. And a big part of it is why? Because they don't see me broken down. Thank you. You too. And here it is, those who did show up, they are few and far between, because there were people who I thought would have shown up, and they didn't. They didn't call. They didn't text. They didn't make a contribution when I had my GoFundMe, when I hit rock bottom. And then there were some people, and what was just humbling and heartwarming was the amount of people who did show up. I'll never forget this one brother who gave $5 to my GoFundMe. And then if someone was to give $5, they probably only had 20 in their bank account. Yeah. But for those who have shown that love, I've shown it back. I've given thanks, and that is Brother Brian Tate, Rob Fields, some of my Kamonge brethren and sisters, people in this community, people who I did not even know. And I think part of that unconditional love was some of what I showed to the community. It came back when I needed it the most. But something my grandfather said to me, is if you don't ask the question, the answer is no.
My dad used to say that ad nauseum. Yo, that's crazy, bro.
Black men.
Yeah, that's right. Man.
Oh, one more question.
I would like to say to Russell, I'm glad you're still here and you did not decide to jump off that bridge. It would have been tragic because of the work you do, the work that you show our community is amazing. So if you could talk a little bit more, about your PBS series that's coming up so that we could even support you even more.
I'm going to add to that and ask also Mikel if you tell the folks about Speak Life.
Thank you, Salima, for coming here today, and appreciate the kind words. So everybody, on June 18th, 6 p.m., documentary series that I'm co-hosting, created, directed, and produced with my business partner, Anderson Zaka. It will be debuting on PBS and All Arts TV. It'll be streaming live on June 18th, Wednesday. And it is pretty much a journey with some Black and brown photographers. It's 5 episodes. There will be 1 episode released per week. Some of the visual anthropologists and visual artists are Buford Smith. He is from Brooklyn, as well from Fort Greene. Joseph Rodriguez, Adama Delphine Fawundu, sister also from Sierra Leone in Brooklyn. Then we have Ozier Muhammad. He is a retired New York Times photographer. And the last episode is actually going to be on myself. And this was a late change. It was really because it was my business partner's idea to create this episode on me. It's because I really speak on this battle with glaucoma. And everybody, I want to really address this to everyone who's here. Glaucoma is a very dangerous eye disease, y'all. It has no symptoms. You won't realize it until it's too late. And I want to give you a very concerning statistic. 4 million people in America have glaucoma. 2 million people do not know they have it. Black and brown people are 6 times more likely to go blind from glaucoma. It doesn't matter what age. Our folks come from West Africa, the Caribbean, Latin America. We are at higher risk. Everyone, you have to go see an ophthalmologist. Not, I want to say this again, not an optometrist. The optometrists are the people in your local eyeglass shops. They do not have the training, nor the technology or the tools to do scans of your eyes, to see the sicknesses that are developing behind your eye that you have no symptoms of. And I want to say this to you, glaucoma can be very aggressive or it can be slow. And for the most part, your vision is like this, the glaucoma closes down until you got nothing. Go get your eyes checked out, tell your friends, your family members, everybody. I don't want nobody to go through what I've gone through. This next assignment for my career in my life is also too about raising awareness about this sickness. The documentary series will speak a little bit about it, but when you tune in, you're going to see culture, you're going to see fine art, you're going to see some engaging conversations, You're going to learn Black history, and you are just going to see something that's fun and excellent, created by yours truly and my business partner. Please support. Thank you. The Darkroom MCs. The Darkroom MCs is the name of the series. June 18th on PBS, All Arts TV, as well as it'll be streaming on YouTube as well. Thank you.
Asked me to talk about, I started a podcast on May 19th last year. And May 19th is like Malcolm X's birthday, but it's also a really close friend of mine, Ronnie Drayton's birthday. Some people in the room I know who Ronnie is. And some people, for the people that don't, Ronnie is a guitar player who, even if you don't know his name, you heard his music. And I'm just gonna say if you heard the Roy Ayers' Everybody Loves the Sunshine album, you heard Ronnie Drayton, okay? So when me and Ronnie used to talk, like, you know how brothers have like slang, like for something that, you said that was on point, like they'll be like, yo, word, or talk that talk, or, real talk. Well, Ronnie used to say to me, if I said something that hit his heart, he'd be like, yo, speak life, Banks. And so I named my podcast Speak Life, because the first episode I did with a producer named Scott Harding, who has a spinal injury and he's wheelchair bound. Just touched me that it just so happened to be on that day, on May 19th, and so I named it after, me and Ronnie's connection. And God rest his soul. And so I have 5 episodes up right now. I got slowed down a little bit because of money and things like that. But I'm about to rev up again, and I'm really, really proud that I have an interview coming up with Marvin Gilmore. Marvin Gilmore is Mark and David Gilmore's father, who is an amazing business person. He's an amazing man. When he was 17, he stormed Normandy. He was one of the men who stormed Normandy, and he just received all kinds of accolades from the president and all these people. But he also, last September, he turned 100 years old. And so this September, he'll be 101. And to say that bruh's got stories, and so I'm really excited that he agreed to be interviewed. And I have some other people lined up. And the interviews I already have, I have two artists who are disabled, and I have 3. I think because it was Women's History Month, I have 3 sisters who are very close to me, and we talked about music and our connection. And but the initial oomph for the podcast was health, Black health, and disability in the Black community. That was and ageism. That was the other thing that I wanted to touch on, is ageism, because a lot of us get marginalized because we're aged, we're aging, and so please, look up Mikel Speak Life. If you just look it up, it'll come right up, and yeah, check me out, y'all. Check me out.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. I hope that you took some really great nuggets from both Russell and Mikel this evening. And thank you for joining us, and have a great week ahead. Oh, wait.
Hey, I want to just close by saying let me step over here. I just want to close by saying thank you. Please join me in giving thanks to Mikel and Russell for speaking life here. And thank you for our wonderful, incomparable moderator, Niama. Also want to again thank Desiree and Sarah for their reading and performance earlier. I want to thank, special thanks to Clint and Alex on technical production. Bruce, Ben, Shelley, and Howard on setup and coordination for the day. They've been working, y'all. The fact that you haven't even seen them means they've really been working. And a special thanks to the Lafayette Avenue Presbyterian Church team, Harriet, Philip, Eduardo, and not least of all, Pastor Emily Brewer. And also, again, thanks to our ASL interpreters, Dana and Allison. Thank you. So I just want to say again, as I said at the top, a huge thank you for the church, for LAPC, for having us here. This really is an institution, a place for the people. And the work that happens here inside the church and the work that the church does across the city on behalf of people who are being endangered and who are in need of spiritual service and in need of community service. The church's work is immense. So if this is your first time coming, please don't make it your last. And keep your eyes out, keep your ears open. We'll be doing some more things. And thank you all again for being here today. Have a good weekend.